we start, and I will just put it also, as I said, live on YouTube. Couple of moments so that it's launched. So welcome, Jutta, and welcome everybody. I am Wana Junku, your host today, and I host this Agile Leadership Dialogues that started back in February. I will share a little bit on the history of these dialogues. But the first, I would like to welcome and express my immense pleasure to have as a guest Jutta Eckstein today, an old Agile friend and a very inspiring woman in Agile and in an Agile community that shared with us her wisdom and her experience as a speaker and an author of a number of books, which the latest is Bossa Nova, an open, I would say, an open framework to embrace agility at the enterprise level. So coming back to the context of these dialogues, I would like to share the context. I started this series of interviews about the becoming of the Agile leadership back in February at the festival, Agile 20 Reflect Festival, a global festival that was meant to celebrate 20 years of the Agile Manifesto. And the initiative that I launched was this interviews of different inspiring people in the Agile community. And the interviews were so appreciated. I had a lot of fun. People had a lot of fun. So I decided to go on, not host those interviews only on the month of February, which was really the month of the Agile Manifesto 20th birthday, but to go on the spring dialogues and now summer dialogues before our holidays. I am myself a leadership coach and an Agile coach. I use a lot of practices, techniques like storytelling, design thinking, open space, by the way, facilitation, and that's why I like to call myself an Agile leadership DJ that mixes whatever practices make sense for people and teams to become proud of their outcomes. That's all from me. Now I'd like to leave the floor to Jutta to present yourself. Welcome, Jutta. I am so grateful and honored to have you here today.
Well, thank you, and also thank you for the great introduction that you gave. And yeah, and it's true. So we have been friends for a long time, actually. I don't even know when it started. So this is really cool.
Part of a group of 400 kids. My mom would run the kitchen. We would all run around.
Oh, now we hear Francois. Maybe, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like
okay.
Yeah.
And I never know where to start, actually. Hey, Francois, good to see you. When I get asked, so introducing myself, because it can be a really long story, and I also sometimes I think it's interesting. So I started actually as a teacher. So not a lot of people know that. And then my next study, so it also seems I like to learn. So my next study was a Master of Science in Engineering, which is also what brought me into software development. I also have actually a certificate on like sustainability, which is actually on environmental protection, mainly of the air, but also noise and stuff like that, which I did really like, I don't know, 25 years ago. So I'm pretty old, if you will. And I also have a Master of Arts in Business Coaching and Change Management. So it's really quite a lot. However, so the key thing is probably that I started with software development and with C++, and then later on Smalltalk. And this already, Smalltalk, brought me into the community I'm in right now. And with that, I was also in the community of patterns. And I don't know if everyone knows that, but Agile really has its roots in both Smalltalk and patterns. So the first Agile approaches like Extreme Programming and Scrum, they have been created in those communities, which means also because I was there in 97, I heard the first time about that, because they have been published as pattern languages. So that's kind of the one thing. The other thing is that as a software developer, and now I guess you need to stop me at whatever time, as a software developer, there was this time where I was on a project for a couple of months, and the project leader said, "Oh, Jutta, since you are on the team, I don't know what you're doing, but you have changed the team for the better," which made me think, so maybe I can also offer something else than software development. So it's not that this wasn't fun, but it was more opening a door or kind of showing me there are other opportunities. And then at first I looked more into design, then into architecture, and then more into leadership. And this is basically where I'm right now, which turned over time more and more also into something else. So at first it was more on the team level, then now it's really more on the organizational level. And as you mentioned at the beginning, I wrote quite some books, I don't know, I think like 5 or so. And they are really describing also my journey, the journey that I went through on my way, or on my path to like from a software developer to more like leadership. So I don't know, is this what you wanted to look for?
Of course. So thank you, Jutta, for sharing this journey. I was thinking when you were talking, I say, well, I would love to replace the expression CV with journey. You know?
Yeah.
And thank you for sharing the journey. By the way, something that I should have said, but I will say it right now about the logistic. This will be about 30 minutes interview with you, and then 20 minutes of question and answers from the people that are here with us. Thank you for being with us today, connected all over the world. Evening in Europe and very late in Asia. So I appreciate your time.
And I wonder if Steve, aren't you in Australia even?
Yeah, even yeah, well, yeah, I really want to appreciate the value that the value of your time that you've given to us. So my first question, Jutta, is that you shared your journey as a software developer, and today very much involved in organization and leadership. What made you do this shift? Why is leadership important?
This is, well, the one thing definitely is that thing that this project manager said, well, I don't know what you do, but you change something for the better. So this was really one of the shifts for me, kind of thinking maybe, yeah, I can do something else. Then probably it's also, I would say my curiosity about experimentation. And very often if you run experiments, or well, maybe I have to do that advertisement, as we mentioned it in Bossa Nova, more as probes, you well, you are leading towards a new approach. So it's kind of a natural thing. If you have that curiosity about experimenting, then this will only happen if you can lead this. And now we're coming actually also to my definition of a leader. A leader for me has nothing to do with any kind of position. It has to do with, like, well, there are people who are following you. And that's also more the thing what I mean with, well, my curiosity in experimentation or in probing. Well, I can only do those if other people also think, well, this is a good idea. Let's try that. And we do this together then. So yeah, there is just no leader without a follower. That's kind of my, my key thing. Yeah.
So you mentioned Jutta, that's a leader, or the definition of a leader is that it has a follower. In the same time, the actions of a leader that you mentioned is, let's try and experiment together.
Yes.
How can a leader gain followers?
So the one thing, definitely, if it's not a together thing, then probably nobody will follow. So if I think this is my cool idea and I'm the coolest person on the planet anyway, which is of course true, right? But no, joking, of course. But then nobody would follow, right? People would just say, well, this is that weirdo, and she's coming up with that crazy stuff, and we are doing our stuff. So it has to do with, like, okay, let's do that conjointly. And then are coming those other things, like, well, just doing those experiments for the sake of experimenting, that's also not helpful. So which I think sometimes, especially coaches and consultants like to do, like offering solutions to the people where the people haven't understood the problem yet. So, and maybe you as a coach or consultant, you are seeing the problem and the problem is obvious to you and it's really there, but the ones who are in there haven't seen it yet. So they haven't recognized that there's a problem yet. So this idea of offering those solutions just, again, doesn't help you get the followers. So I think what gets you followers is starting, well, speaking the language, the same language of those people you want to have as followers, and understanding the context they're in. So understanding what is it what they are seeing, and not so much what you are seeing.
Okay.
Does it make sense?
Yes, of course. Of course, that inspires me a lot of questions, which I need to pick.
Okay,
I need to prioritize my own backlog of questions, which means, anyway, for me, a sign of how inspirational you are. Well, let's pick one. What I understand, how you. As I understand what you're saying is, as a leader, to have followers and make people experiment together, he needs to see, or she needs to see what the other people, what's the other people point of view. How can a leader do that? How does a leader does that? Shift perspective. And still be aligned.
Yeah. It probably comes down a lot to being aware and increasing your awareness of what's going on. And by being aware, this also means trying to walk in the shoes of the others, because then you see better what they are seeing. And and not so much, well, maybe the other thing as well, You see, my thoughts are also kind of going always.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the biggest skills I think you need to have is being a good listener. And with being a good listener, you also can create or increase that awareness of how others are seeing the world. And therefore also what kind of problems they are facing.
So yes, my second question was you were mentioning that he might clearly see the problem, but other people don't see the problem. So the second question was how can they help see a problem? Actually, there are two questions. Or without manipulating, because I can convince you that you have a problem.
Yes, very good.
Or I see what your problem is, so and how actually, yes, he can, because you mentioned a good listener, she or he can shift his own view on the problem.
Yes, exactly. That's what's needed. And actually, I'm just thinking what's maybe even more important, and that's perhaps happening right now with me all the time, that I have a thought and I think, oh, this is even more important. So the one that I have right now, which I think is even more important, to understand that as a leader, it doesn't mean you are leading all the time. Because everyone is a leader at one point in time for whatever kind of thing. So leadership is also fluid, probably. And thinking of leadership again in this way, it's not a position. And even if we talk about positions, that there is somebody in the hierarchy and has a title, that doesn't make that person a leader if nobody follows. You just have officially that position and you probably get a good salary. So that's good. These are your points, but you're not necessarily a leader by that. So again, the thought that I'm having right now is really understanding that being a leader is also a temporal thing, and that like the one who are following you right now might be the leader in the next 10 minutes or next few days or weeks or whatever, and you are the follower. So that it's also fluid, interchanging.
I love this this idea of fluid leadership. And what I understand,
is this a term? Did I just invent it?
I think so. So I think that I've never heard it, but I love it. So
okay, so we have to create a certification then.
Yeah, we'll do that. If you allow me, we can do that together.
Yes.
We can go back to certifications, by the way, afterwards. But I really love this idea of fluid leadership, and the way that you said, I will put in a way you tell me that if that's right, that one of the qualities of a leader is to leave leadership. Give up leadership, to let go leadership.
Yes.
When in a moment someone else can take in, and
yes.
that's as leadership is a shared concept. So I really love that, and also what you said about position. That a position doesn't mean that you're a leader, but you can have a position without followers.
Yes.
Thank you for all these insights. I would like to go back to something that you said as a quality of a leader, which is a good listener. And I would like to drill down, if you're okay. What means a good listener? How do you measure a good listener? Because we talked about good listener or quality listening, but what is that for you, Jutta?
It has to do with this being able to switch the perspective and trying to understand what your counterpart is saying, or the person you are listening to. Counterpart sounds so offensive. So the person you're listening to, understanding the context that person is in. So again, the walking in those shoes, and then I assume that some of us at least have also learned that in coaching school, in quotes here, which is you're not only listening with your rationale, which is your ears and your brain, but you're also listening with your heart and your gut. Because which actually is, I believe, one of the problems we are having right now in these remote settings, because we only see this little rectangle here, trying to make that around myself, and you don't see my whole body language. And I try to put my arms up, but it's weird because it's the wrong height for really doing any gymnastics here, right? So we just have like parts of the communication right now, and we don't have that in-depth connection that I think helps us to really listen deeply, because we understand and listen to the whole person and not only what's blurbing out of the mouth here.
Wonderful, Jutta. This is so important what you're saying. Like, a good listener is listening not only the words, but also listening to with emotionally in being a state of a listener. And which reminds me, we talked and you mentioned let go of the leadership, and also in a way letting go of its own idea of the solution or what the problem is. So it's very much around letting go. And when you're saying also listening emotionally, it's letting go of somehow of the ego.
Yes.
So my question inspired what you're saying is, what's the relation that you see between leadership and vulnerability as a person?
I guess you're getting there somewhere, because being able to let go already means you make yourself more vulnerable. And also, I think it's, you at the beginning, you were asking about how do you actually gain followers. Often you gain them by, first of all, by being authentic. But being authentic also means there are vulnerable, at least parts within you. There is stuff you don't know, or that hurts you, and and of course talking about that is much easier than really living it. And which kind of gets me to maybe a typical problem that I see in, like, when companies try to implement Agile and running whatever an Agile transformation. I don't like that term either. That's why I'm putting it in quotes. That they just often then say, well, let's go Agile, and they put whatever kind of environment in place. But what's often lacking is, regarding the people at the top who think they will lead here, regarding them and seeing that none of them is actually showing off how they are learning. And so I have seldom heard that from the top, that somebody then says, well, look, this is the failure I made last week, and this is what I learned from it. And on the other hand, it's always preached to the rest of the company, well, we want to have this culture of failure, and failure is fine because we want to learn with that and all of that. But, well, if it's not lived as a role model from the top, and I understand again, so I also understand why they don't, because they are uncertain about if they are making themselves vulnerable, maybe they lose their followers. That's I think the thinking here. Oh, I see. Dolly has seen that too. And that this then just makes it so, makes it then hard to believe in Agile also in other areas. And also it means, well, why would we as in our team talk about our failures openly if we know exactly that failing is not an option here? Well, we can always point at what went well, but and maybe we find and come up with a few things that are not so well, but we are cautious about that.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying, this disalignment between promoting a culture of failure, unless it's not mine.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we talked about so mentioned the leadership and vulnerability and recognizing the vulnerability. At what point is the courage of a leader is to acknowledge her or his own vulnerability? How can that work?
I'm not sure if I understand.
Yeah.
Definitely courage and vulnerable and showing that you are vulnerable or can be vulnerable. These are the same things. So two sides of the medal, really, I would say.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, is this where you were getting at?
Exactly.
So it really, the one depends on the other. Absolutely.
Exactly. I wanted to say how you see it. Now we've talked about leadership, but I was also mentioning at the beginning Agile leadership. So what is Agile leadership for you, Jutta? Does it make a particular sense, or it's just leadership or something else? What are your thoughts?
I would hope it's good leadership. And now you ask me define good. And so then I'm like swimming here.
Yeah.
So for sure, and I'm old enough to have seen that they have always been good or bad leaders. And this has not necessarily something to do with Agile, but maybe more with, I don't know, personal awareness, maybe. Yeah. And speaking of Agile leadership, actually, I sometimes struggle with that as well, because it seems what is understood as Agile leadership is, from how I see people talk about, it's often understood as like servant leaders. And maybe, well, if you think about servant or coaches as leaders, or maybe what's also, maybe those two, coaches and servant leader. And that is true. It's not wrong. However, context matters. It's not always that as a, trying to define good here, as a good leader, that you're leading all the time in the same way. So they're just, context matters, and therefore also leadership styles will vary. And in the same way as we talk about teams that have or should have their toolboxes where they can choose from depending on the context they're in, the same is true for a leader. So it's not always using the same thing, and it's more like situational leadership that's more required, which is also not a new thing. Yeah.
So what if I rephrase it, you tell me if I'm wrong. Agile leadership, actually, the agile means the capacity to adapt leadership to the situations. Okay, brilliant.
And I think it's not often understood like that. So it's very often understood as there's one defined way, which is the servant leadership, or the leader as a coach.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would like to come back, Jutta, on this idea of a leader that becomes a follower, and the fluid leadership that I loved a lot. Would you say now, after this discussion, that being a follower is also a form of leadership? And if you, or just comment on that, tell me what you think. Is that true or is that false, and why?
Well, I think as a follower, well, there's some things. So one thing is, as a follower, you are empowering the leader, which maybe means it's also a way of leading. And the other thing that comes to my mind is, if you think of any kind of change, and also the research that has been done in change, and what people found there is, well, first of all, change doesn't have to be started from the top. And so change can be started anywhere. And you need, I think the research says, like 5 people, somebody can correct me here, 5 or 6 people you need in order to create that momentum so that a change can actually happen. And this means, well, if you are following that very first one, you are by definition a leader, because you are one of those people ensuring that this momentum is created. Yeah. And my favorite example right now is, not sure, we have people from all over the world, and I hope that she's known now all over the world, definitely in Europe, but it's like Greta Thunberg. So a little girl, definitely not in a leadership position, sitting there in Stockholm, and she really changed something. Well, we don't know yet where it leads to, but what she made really, or what she created, was that, well, people cannot ignore her anymore, or the, well, in Europe it's the Fridays for Future protests that are going on. And I know in other areas there's, well, in some, well, at least Australia, I have seen that too, and probably also in India. But it's not everywhere as massive as it is here, I know that. But still, so it was just her. If she would have stayed by herself, nothing would have happened. So there was the need for a few followers to create enough pressure so that she couldn't be ignored. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Jutta. This is beautiful to say that as early followers, we are definitely is a form of leadership. So thank you for that. Is that inspires me of the leadership of choice, of choosing, of choosing.
True.
Yeah. Thank you. I would, before leaving the floor to our participants, so they can ask the questions, I would love to ask you a last question about your most recent book, and the approach that you propose on agility at the enterprise level, based on beyond budgeting, open space, and sociocracy. For me, all these are linked to a type of leadership also. I don't know what you think, but I would like you to develop is why did you choose these type of approaches to create a enterprise level approach, and is there a specific type of leadership to support them?
Okay, I try to make this as short as possible. So
we have some time, so say whatever is important.
Yeah. So I have to say, so this is John Backe and myself. So John is the co-author of the Bossa Nova book. Yeah. We have been looking into company-wide agility, meaning what kind of values are really at the core for a company who claims or wants to be agile. And then we were looking at what is out there and is supporting those values. And really, indeed, we created like a spreadsheet where we looked at a lot of these things that are out there. And well, by doing that, we heard of other stuff popping up all the time, like, I don't know anymore, responsible organizations, I think, and then Semco style came up, and of course there's Spotify, and there's, well, everything about sociocracy, which is also S3 and holacracy, and then you beyond budgeting and better codex and blah blah blah. So it goes on and on and on. And for sure we haven't covered everything, because also we realized there's more and more coming up. So we had this table with the values, and then looking at how do those different streams that we are seeing supporting those values, and then also how maybe specific or generic are those, and do we know if there are actually companies using it? So is it practical, or is it more a philosophy? And it's not that the one is better than the other. It's more like we felt we wanted to have something that's practical, so that also there are companies that can be referred to, and we know it's working really. And yeah, for example, one of the philosophies we considered was Theory U. I believe you're also in that, right? So, I would think all the things we have been looking at have been guiding the development of Bossa Nova. Yet we felt that those 4 streams really each provided a different angle or different perspective on an organization, and still supporting the same values. So that was kind of a key thing. Then about leadership, this is hard. So the way I would say it, and probably once I said it, I think like, oh, I shouldn't have said that, is that there seems to be a belief in all of those 4 streams that you lead more through trust than through control. However, and this is why I said, well, maybe then I say, well, I shouldn't have said that. It's not necessarily to say, well, there has first to be trust and then I can use that. It's also that these different streams are meant to create that trust. So they create a trustworthy environment, I would say. Or they create, like thinking of sociocracy, they create more the structure so that you can, that trust can flourish. Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, thank you, Jutta. And on this last takeaway that you so generously offer, like one of the goals of the leadership is trust, or creating trustworthy environments. I open the question and answers space and moment. So who among the participants have questions? So feel free to unmute yourself and ask the question, or put it in the chat. But we would love to hear from you, if that's okay. What are the questions for Jutta?
Can I ask if nobody else is?
Of course, Dolly. That's okay.
Yeah. Hey Jutta. So you said that you don't like the term agile transformation. Is there any specific reason, and what is the term that is more suitable here?
Actually, I think really the term that I coincidentally used when going over my CV journey is what I like much better. And I don't like transformation so much because it sounds like there comes a time you are done. And I don't think this is true. I think you are going on this agile journey and you keep changing, you keep exploring, you keep, well, probing, experimenting, you keep learning, definitely. There is no such thing there you say, okay, now we learned it, we know it, here we are, we have transformed. No, this keeps going, and therefore it's a journey. So.
Sure. Thanks, Jutta. I have 2 more questions.
Of course, go on, Dolly. Yeah.
Okay. So the first one is, Jutta, do you believe in something called selfless leadership? Is there anything like that that is existing, or what is your take on it?
I have never heard of it. Is this a thing, or or you are just asking if it could be a thing?
I'm asking from my end, can there be something like selfless leadership at all?
Yeah. So what comes to my mind is this, what I said before, trying to walk in the shoes of the others, and also the deep listening has probably a thing in it which is selfless, or maybe it's more like egoless. I think I like that better. But yeah, and I don't know if this goes in that direction, or if this is a thing and I don't know about. There's so much out there.
There's a notion of selfless leadership that is maybe connected with servant leadership. It's the way that it's the opposite of selfish, you know. So you act, your leadership is not for yourself, but for something
for
greater.
Others.
For something greater, for the others. Yeah.
Well, which is true and which is not true. What I see in the world, because sometimes leaders are emerging because they are passionate about something, and this passion is maybe selfish. Well, it is maybe because they see whatever, but then there are others who also share that passion, or understand the passion, and therefore they follow. So I'm not sure if this is something, again, it's probably more situational. Yeah, and it's not like this should be always the way to do it. Same way as you shouldn't go follow always your ego.
Okay. So yes, Dolly, is the answer fine for you, or do you need more on this question?
For now, yes. Maybe I have to take some time and understand it better. But yeah, thanks, Jutta.
And you can also share, Dolly, what your opinion is on that.
For me, I was just, thinking that, if there is a leader, and what I meant when I asked is that there are no goals for this leader as to, there are no personal goals, or, there is no attachment to, for this particular leader to be always in the limelight and get all the credit. It is more of enabling others, and with their success, how this leader is also successful. So I was just
sounds more like a coach to me.
Okay.
And there is this leadership style which is more a coaching style, and maybe it has that term now.
Okay.
Yeah, and it has its place, I think. Yet I would get really nervous if I would have, like in companies, only leaders who have not their own goals. I would not trust them, I think.
Okay.
But that's me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Talking about coaching, one last question, and then I'll leave it to
Okay.
others.
Okay.
So yeah, so one of the things for coaches is, we find few people who are really coachable, like they are open to coaching, and we will also have few people who are not open to coaching, like they're not coachable. So do you have any like quick tips as to how to handle such people?
Yeah, I think this is really tough in a sense that, well, probably it means we haven't listened attentively enough. And what I'm referring to here always is what I've once learned from chaos and complexity theory, which is that there is actually no resistance to change, but there are just always different attractors. And maybe the coach hasn't found out yet what is actually the attractor for the coachee. And because that attractor is not known, it seems that person is not coachable, which also is a very weird term, because to coach somebody always means that that person wants to be coached. And if somebody is not coachable, it sounds like, well, we put this on that person. We say, like, you need some coaching, like you need medicine or something.
Yeah.
And this is kind of contradicting the ethics of coaching, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
We
That's
have,
that's a very good perspective, Jutta. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for your questions, Dolly. Are you okay with the answers? Can we? If you're okay, move on. Thank you, Dolly. Yeah, that's what you've said, Jutta, is really so important, that you can't coach someone without her agreement.
Yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. Francois has a question. I think, Francois, do you want to unmute and ask the question if you want? And it's in the chat. Hi.
Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Yeah. Hi, Jutta. Yeah, it wasn't actually a question. It was more reflecting on what Dolly what Dolly was saying, because I think there's also you can look at leadership from a perspective of outcomes, so leading towards a specific outcomes, and that is a view that is quite predominant in our part of the world. But there is another perspective, which is really letting letting things of the future emerge. And I think the sort of the selflessness, that's where that plays a role. So
where the emergence is more happening.
Exactly. So yeah, it just sounds. I was just reflecting on what Dolly was trying to bring forward, and I think they're very important, especially. And I think, well, actually, as you know, coming more from a complexity point of view, I think the emergence is actually more important,
right?
At least in terms of counterbalancing in our current times.
Yes.
But anyway, that wasn't a question. It was simply a sort of.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But and again, what you were saying as well, it is situational, right? Yeah. So context just matters everywhere. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Francois, for your feedback and input is always so rich. in terms of new learnings and new perspectives and new emergencies. I don't know, it's funny. Yeah, great. If that's fine for you, Francois? Okay, thank you. Any other question that you like to ask Jutta, or sharing insights as Francois did? It is so valuable. Wait a little bit. Maybe. There's a new question emerging. Well, someone is coming in for the last 5 minutes. Welcome. Okay. So, yes, well, if no one has a question right now, I had a question that emerged from the question and answers, and about the selfless leadership. Thank you, Dolly, for putting it forward. I would like to know, Jutta, what means for you being at service of a goal. Is it, when you talked about the passion, you know, so if someone is passionate, it's what does that mean in terms of being a service of the goal? Is it a personal goal? Is it a greater goal? Is there a difference for you?
So using the example I used towards the end of our dialogue, so before opening the Q&A, thinking of Greta Thunberg, I think for her, this is an absolute personal goal. Yet I guess and hope we all understand this is really a greater goal. Yet I think, well, also probably because she's autistic, but still for her, there's no difference. And I'm just using this as an example because I think this is also true in a lot of other cases. And it can be much smaller than this. So it can be also thinking of your team or business unit or the company or so, that you are really passionate about a feature, a product, whatever you deliver there. And it is your passion, but it also pays into the overall vision of the company. And probably there are also other examples where this differs a lot. And well, there comes something to my mind. For example, sometimes I see people being passionate about something that I'm not really understanding why they are. And most often what comes out, especially now in the company context, is, well, that they got their individual objectives around that topic, and that's why they are passionate about that topic, because their bonus depends on it reaching that objective or not. And maybe the world has changed and their objective is absolutely disconnected from what the team is working on right now, compared to when the objective was kind of agreed upon. So which is really a problem I often see. It's not so seldom. However, you still can ask, is that person really passionate about that? Well, passionate because the bonus is depending on it, yes. But is it something, a goal that comes from the person really? And then you could also think about, is it really leadership? Well, at least the person tries to have the whole team following, so that they can, so he or she can reach that objective, right? So
yeah.
So maybe we should think more about the Greta example because it's a nicer example.
Yeah.
And a better closing.
Yeah. But I like to make a bridge or a link between the two as I understand it. So tell me if I'm wrong. It's like, well, Greta is passionate, and the future of the Earth is a personal goal for her.
Yeah.
To make people aware. But in the same time, she has no personal objective, bonus objectives. You know,
Yeah.
she doesn't
That's
have.
True.
So,
well, maybe her own future.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's true. It's true. It's interesting in your example, what I see as a difference, even if it's a personal goal, it's for a greater good.
Yes.
That I embrace it.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, where it's not and this can be selfless, even if it's personal. And on the other hand, is my goals, even as a leader, serves me, my bonus.
Yeah.
For example.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. And well, I'm sure there's some political examples. We might have others. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Jutta. We are on the hour and time. So unless there's really a burning question that comes from the audience right now.
Last chance.
Last chance. Okay. Well, it seems that there are not. I would like to warmly thank you, everyone, for being here with us. Thank you, Jutta, mainly for sharing your wisdom, your kindness, your experience, and everything with us. And yeah, see you on the other dialogues. It will be others people that will be guests if you liked it. And I wish you a happy summer holiday and happy time.
Same for everyone. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye, François.